No one saw this coming as Team USA Hockey has released their Olympic orientation roster, which caught many Canucks fans by surprise from a certain appearance, while also receiving backlash after two other Canucks were seemingly snubbed from the list. We're going to be breaking down all that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first, if you're part of the nearly 60% of viewers who aren't yet subscribed yet and you want to stay up to date on all things Canucks, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates as they drop. With that, let's hop straight into it, which is USA Hockey orientation roster. So yesterday, USA Hockey put out their list of the men's Olympic orientation camp roster, where you see there in the forwards that there was a very surprise appearance by Conor Garland, and then there was Quinn Hughes, who was already on the list from that preliminary six-player list that they put out. And then you go to the goaltenders there, where there was Joey Daccord, Connor Hellebuyck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. We'll talk about that one in a second. But right off the bat here, congratulations to Quinn Hughes, obviously, for already making it, and Conor Garland with a very surprise appearance that a lot of Canucks fans were hoping was going to happen, but weren't entirely banking on it like Quinn Hughes was a given. Conor Garland was not necessarily a given to going into this orientation selection, as it just came off of the heels of a crazy World Cup appearance from himself, where in 10 games he had 10 points, 5 goals, and 5 assists as Team USA won gold at the World Championships. And it's not the first time that he played at the World Championships as well, playing two other times before that and putting up massive productions on the international stage, as well as in the NHL, where since he's come over to Vancouver, he has consistently gotten better and better each season, except for that first one. He hasn't reached the top of that 21-22 season, but since then, going from 46, 47, 50, and while he may not have been scoring as many goals and getting as many points as that 21-22 season, just by a little bit, he was still evolving his game and getting better and better as an all-around player, not just as a goal scorer. So congratulations to Conor Garland for making that orientation list. Really hope that he makes that Olympic roster, because it would be great for the Canucks, and it's better competition in the Olympics for this great hockey tournament that's going to be happening next season. Obviously hoping Team Canada takes home the gold, of course, but hoping to see Conor Garland and Quinn Hughes both. Obviously Quinn Hughes is going to make that roster. That's a given. So we're not really going to focus on that here, but here's to hoping that Conor Garland is able to get on that final roster and represent Team USA in Italy next year at the Winter Olympics. It'll be really interesting to see how this Olympic roster kind of boils down, not just on the USA side and the Canada side, but also on Sweden's side, to see if Elias Pettersson, Marcus Pettersson, and some other guys even make the list. Then there's also on the Latvia side of things, we got Teddy Bluger as well in there, and some other teams. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, because this is going to be the first time that we see NHL players back in the Winter Olympics since that almost strike, you would call it, when the NHL kind of pulled out of that. But hopefully this is going to be one of the best Olympics that we have seen for hockey in quite some time, hopefully since 2010, because 2014 with Sochi, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. It was kind of an underwhelming gold medal game. Yeah, Canada got the dub. It was an easy dub, easy money. But that 2010 Olympics in Vancouver was something special that hopefully can be replicated this time around in 2026, 16 years later, where hopefully it's Team USA versus Team Canada again in the gold medal match, and Canada is able to get away with the gold medal. But here's hoping Conor Garland has a successful camp and makes his way onto that final roster. Again, congratulations to him. He's definitely earned it, and this was something that I was really hoping was going to happen, but I wasn't necessarily sure, especially with some of the other big-name Americans that you see that were on that list as well. You got Jake Gensel in there. You got Cole Caulfield. You got Patrick Kane, who's one of the GOATs of his era. You got Chris Kreider on there. You got Brock Nelson, JT Miller. Then you got Brady Tkachuk, obviously Vincent Trocheck. There is a lot of great forwards selected for the Team USA orientation camp, but there was one that we're going to talk about that was left off of that selection, as well as one goaltender that was left off, and that is going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is Canucks snubbed. So of course, when we look at that list of the players that were announced, there are two players that were not announced that a lot of people on social media were kind of wondering why they weren't on that list, or why they weren't weren't given a look. And that, of course, is Thatcher Demko and Brock Boeser. You see there in the forwards group, you don't see Brock Boeser's name in there, and you don't see Thatcher Demko's name in the goaltenders group. And if there's anyone that was more surprising that wasn't in there, was Thatcher Demko, because he's been in the league for quite some time. He's a Vezina caliber goalie, and he's a Vezina nominee. Can you say the same for Joey Daccord? Not necessarily. He had a really good season last year. I won't discount that. And a really solid season the year before that. Even better, you might say. But again, this is only 2 straight good seasons, and Thatcher Demko has been able to rack up many good seasons, posting a career goal save percentage of 91%, with Joey Daccord being at 90. So not too much of a gap there, but just a little bit. And Thatcher Demko also has postseason experience. Not much of it, but he still has played in a little bit of those games. But obviously, I think the main reason why Thatcher Demko was not selected is the same reason why the Four Nations tournament didn't pan out for him as well, is because of his health. That is probably a big thing heading into this season, where he's hoping to have a bounce back season, and this could go and prove the naysayers wrong. But you could argue that him not being selected for this makes him more available to focus on that health and be at 110%, just like how he wasn't playing at the Four Nations when people were kind of expecting him to make it, and then the injury thing happened, and then he was just saying, hey, I'm just going to focus on rehabbing, making sure I'm back to 110% for the games that matter most instead of the Four Nations tournament. Obviously, the Olympics is a bit of a different story, but if you're looking at that as the optimistic point of view, that is a way to look at it, where it's like, hey, it's just more time for him to rehab and get back to 110% and focus on a bounce back season. But on the other side of that, and maybe to Canada's benefit, you see USA at a massive detriment, not having Thatcher Demko on their roster and having to go with Joey Daccord, who's a solid goaltender, don't get me wrong, but he's not Thatcher Demko. And especially when you look at the other names that were selected, Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman, those are guys that are Vezina caliber goalies. Daccord hasn't exactly proved that just yet, but we could see him do that in the future. Who knows? But again, I think that Thatcher Demko not being on here is a big detriment for Team USA, but it's a big benefit for Team Canada. But the second player that was not on that list was, of course, Brock Boeser. And if you guys have been following the channel for quite some time, you guys know that Brock Boeser is my favorite Canuck. When he got extended, I was over the moon for it, happier than a pig in a mud bath, and I was just happy as all hell for Brock Boeser staying in Vancouver, probably for the rest of his career. Now, the big reason why I love Brock Boeser is there is nobody on the Canucks who is more clutch than Brock Boeser. Quinn Hughes might be the best player on the Canucks, but when you need a goal, when you're down 2 goals, you need to get a spark going, or just need a guy to rattle off 2 goals to tie the game or take the lead, Brock Boeser is that guy. You need a guy to put the team on your back and score a hat trick if he needs to. Brock Boeser is that guy. You need someone to score an overtime winner for you, or a late third period goal that just ends up taking the late lead. Brock Boeser is your guy. And again, even in the playoffs, he has performed. He has performed almost every single year when he is healthy, and even when his health is at a detriment, when he's clicking before that happens, he is still on fire. And obviously, it's great that he's going to be staying in Vancouver, of course, but him going to represent the Olympics, it would have been a really good opportunity for him, because he is a world-class player. Despite the injuries, despite the off-ice stuff with his mental health and things like that, this is still a top-tier player in this league, and one of the best of his age group, and one of the best that we've seen on this Vancouver Canucks roster ever. As far as anyone's concerned, I would put Brock Boeser in the top 10 Canucks of all time for sure. Quinn Hughes is obviously going to make a case for that as well, and he's up there with Roberto Luongo, Marcus Naslund, and the Sedins. But this is somebody who should have been on this roster. You look at guys like Patrick Kane, yeah, you have him there as the leadership guy and the veteran guy and things like that, the same way that Sidney Crosby will be, but Sidney Crosby's in a lot better shape and in more of a scoring attitude for Team Canada. But for someone like Brock Boeser, where guys like JT Miller made the list, Patrick Kane made the list, Dylan Larkin made the list, and some other ones, this was an opportunity where Brock Boeser could obviously represent his country, but could also show on the world stage what he can do in those big games. He's never had that chance to really shine on the world stage in a massive game where he can say, hey, this is what I can do in the NHL, and this is what I can do on the world stage as well in international play. And this was something where I thought that he could have really excelled at that had he made it onto that Olympic roster. It would have been really cool to see, not only because he's my favorite Canuck, but also it just would have made the game that much better when you have a guy that's as volatile like that on the ice, who can score at any given moment. And yeah, he might have lost a step here and there in his stride, but this is a guy where if you need a rally started, he's the guy. If you need a game winner, he's the guy. If you need a spark going, it's Brock Boeser. No other answer other than number 6. But what did you guys think about this orientation list? Is there a name on the Canucks that you thought was going to get on there that didn't get on there outside of Boeser and Demko? Maybe potentially some other ones that are on the Americans that we have on the team. But I really think that Demko and Boeser are the big ones. So as far as those guys are concerned, how surprised were you that neither of them made the list, let alone Demko or Boeser? let us know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.